Warning: World-Weary Podcast occasionally discusses mature themes and uses colorful language.
Imagine living in a world where the idea of wanting an education actually makes you look like a crazy person. Where any aspiration you have is shut down even before you speak it out loud because everyone around you and society makes it very clear that you should have no higher aspiration than husband and home. However, there are special people throughout history who have managed, despite their social or economic restraints, to tip just a tiny piece of glass from the ceiling that has been holding them back. Hi, I'm the American one, Cassiopeia Walker.
And I'm the British one, Violet Starr.
Today we're going to be exploring famous drag kings throughout history. Women who, for whatever reason, have donned the clothes and behaviors associated with cisgendered men in order to accomplish their goals under the restraints of a barbaric system that undermines and oppresses women. A system whose outdated views on the gender spectrum and gender roles are still affecting us negatively today. I know this sounds heavy, but we're going to have a lot of fun, or at least I am. Drag kings. So, Violet, have you ever dressed in drag?
Have I ever gone in disguise? I don't think I have, but I do have like a really embarrassing memory about going in drag for a school performance. I think it was like a talent show or something at school, and everyone had to participate. It wasn't just like, you know, some kids that wanted to. Like, everyone had to participate in this talent show. And my act was, I think, me and my friend doing a kind of stand-up, like we did a comedy sketch in which I was a kind of Ali G character. I had mascara, goatee, and like a yellow hoodie and tracksuit and a beanie on. A lot of bronzer and a pair of sunglasses. And we did this super duper embarrassing comedy sketch that I have blocked out until now. I think that's the only time I've really done a male drag.
Oh, yeah.
What about you?
I mean, did I tell you this story? I probably told you this story, but...
You weren't, no. I was thinking,
Okay,
I remember you did a labyrinth costume when you were younger, but that was...
I was
Sarah,
the lady, but
right?
I was Sarah, but my friend Kate, she dressed as David Bowie. All right, so other than that, okay, so I one time I was the drama club president at one point, like co-president as well. I took one of the many crusty ass, rickety, crickety, gross wigs in the drama department that have probably been there for 40 years, and put on some of friend Dan's clothes, I think, or some of the dude's clothes, and went up to the front of the auditorium like I was coming in like as a new student or whatever, and my friend Jessica was at the bottom of the stage, and I saw her like look at me and then like continue having a conversation. Like apparently when she was having that conversation and I was like coming down to like reveal myself as me, she had been telling her friend, like asking who that hot guy was. And so like me, generally, I'm just, you know, cute, you know? That's usually what I get. Oh, you're so cute. But as a dude, for a fleeting moment, I was a hottie.
Oh my God.
I've always been tempted to try like drag king stuff, but like...
I always wondered what I'd be like if I was a man.
Yeah.
I don't think I would like me if I was a man.
Oh, I'd be an asshole.
Oh, I'd be awful.
I'd be the worst.
Yeah.
I'm pretty bad now, but...
I feel like I'd be an attractive guy, but...
I was already starting to change my attitude when I was in the wig.
Yeah.
Like, I thought I was the shit. And I was like short man syndrome for sure. Because you know me, I would have grown
like a tiny Tom Cruise.
I would have been 5 foot. Yeah, like I would have been Tom Cruise. I could have been the coolest, hottest dude. Like, but like, yeah. I liked drag. I liked any kind of costuming. I would dress as a clown, dress as anything to get a reaction or a laugh I was quite pranky as well. Like,
I've always said as well that when people ask me what superpower would I like to have, honestly, one of the things that I think I would like the most would to just be able to just instantly become in this like perfect disguise as like an older man. I could get away with like so much stuff. I could feel safe. I could like...
You could do what Major did once, and my father-in-law, you could go into a Sainsbury's with a 10-year-old indistinguishable can opener with no receipt and come out with a brand new one an hour and a half later after tiring out whatever poor worker was there. He's like, I got this for free. It's just like, you could do that as an older man.
So useful. It really would be one of the... Yeah, that would definitely be my superpower, I think.
What would you...
Just become
what would
an
be your
old man
superhero name?
whenever I liked.
As an old man to young girl to old man, what would be your superhero name?
Let me think. Probably like, I don't know, like old man girl. Like, I'd probably be an anime character.
Yeah,
to
so
be
it would
fair.
be very literal.
Like, yeah, it would be something like, I don't know, like Kawaii-san or something like that in Japanese. Like,
oh my gosh. That would be incredible though. They need to make a series out of that. I could write a series about that.
Oh, you do. It
would be situational heaven.
There is a beautiful, quirky plot line for a weird comic.
You'd never get in trouble at school. You'd be your own dad.
Girl whose superpower is turning into an old man whenever she likes.
She finds out when she gets her first period.
Yeah.
She suddenly has her first period at the end of the 5 days. She sporadically keeps turning into this old man.
And
she's
the
like,
weird
I can't
moments
control
when
it.
her like crush or boyfriend meets her in her old man disguise while she's out saving the town from like, I don't know, some like villainous elderly woman or something.
Oh
like,
no! And she does the whole Superman like runs to an alley and he spies her through a crack and she'd be dun 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 dun. Oh my knees!
Yeah.
This transforms. He's like, no, Violet.
We have to copyright this.
Yeah, if anyone's listening, you know,
Don't steal our idea.
Don't steal our. We'll work with you. Let's make it happen. Netflix, I can write this. Stick me in a room with Violet. We've got this.
Oh yeah, I come up with a great anime story plot. Like literally
on the daily.
Like, yeah, literally I come up with the best concepts. I've written some of them down. They're so good.
All right, so I'm gonna bring you. So I'm starting now. I'm the master of the episode. I'm gonna bring you to the American Revolution.
Hell yeah!
All right, so sort of like there's a lot of baggage with the American Revolution that we are not going to unpack. I'm not even going to look at the suitcase this episode. I'm going to give you an overview, okay? You know, depending on whose history books you read, British or American, I mean, we're both sides of the story. We know. We go beyond our whole schooling. We know that there's different perspectives on what happened, depending on where you're from.
I mean, I didn't even learn about the American Revolution.
I bet they...
In my school, that was not compulsory history.
No, that was not something... I'm sure they brushed over that bit. We used to... No, don't look at that.
Yeah.
So for us, it's like, you know...
We study up to the moment where we discover... I discover in little quotation air marks, where we discover America, and then we sort of gently,
oh my God,
we smooth out the rest of it, and then you slightly get joined in on the World War lessons, but only a little bit.
Oh, and the Americans
the contribution was pretty minimal.
Yeah, so in America, they taught, see, that's one of the first things when I moved here that I learned that the history was so different over here. Because in America, they teach you, we like came into World War II and we just saved the day. If America, you know, it was, I don't want to get into that kind of stuff really, but it's just interesting the different perspectives we all have on our history and what we choose to share and educate our children about. So basically, we're going to go to the American Revolution. Shit's going down. We're not just going to the American Revolution, y'all. We're going straight to to Massachusetts, where shit's really going down, where this really popped off. So,
what's the snack that they have in Massachusetts? I feel like I've seen that on that the program that's taught me a lot about American culture besides Dog the Bounty Hunter is that guy that ate. He's like a eating dude.
I have no idea.
Man versus Food.
Yeah, I've seen a few episodes.
And he traveled to like different bits of America, and that was where I learned a lot about American food culture. And I felt like Massachusetts was one of the ones that always had like, I don't know, like big sloppy baguettes or like a weird kind of barbecue. They have a famous snack, and I can't remember what it is.
I have no idea. I've never been to Massachusetts. I'm from Maryland, and I've been down south. I've been every state on the way to Florida, and nowhere else. Oh no, I went to New York,
Boston
New
in
Jersey.
Massachusetts?
Boston is in Massachusetts. So
yeah, I feel like they have something with cheese on it then, or like a weird mix of like seafood and meat or something. I don't know.
We'll let the listeners yell at us.
Let us know what the snack is in Massachusetts.
Massachusetts people are going to be like, how
food.
dare you not know about our snack? Send us your snacks if they're able to be posted. One day when we have a PO box. All right. So the woman I'm going to be talking about is named Deborah Sampson. The general gist is at the age of 21, they argued, maybe 18, she abandoned her normal life and petticoats and dressed in breeches, a large roomy linen shirt, a waistcoat, hair tied up in a queue with a tricon hat, I guess that's what it's called, and took the name Robert Shirtliff and enlisted in the Continental Army and served 17 months undiscovered as a woman. Now, I'm not going to try, we've started the episode out telling you what's going on, so I just wanted to give you a rough overview before we get into it. We're in the 1760s. We're going to go back to baby Deborah. What's made this person join the fucking American Revolution? So 1760s, she was the 5th child named after her mother, Deborah. Her father was Jonathan Sampson. He wasn't exactly a reliable sort. The most he seemed to have contributed was the children. They just had a baby brother born Nehemiah, and the parents one night argued, and then suddenly the father picked up his things and left. Then the mother asked all the children to stay at the table after supper the next night. She told them that their father had gone to be a sailor, and she was expecting again. So she's already pregnant.
Bad times. Just so rough back then.
So she's kid number 7's on the way.
Jesus.
And the dad's gone. Now, I'm going to say this right now. The news travels later that he dies sailing just outside of Nantucket. But the truth is, the motherfucker just jumped ship, and ended up with a new family kind of thing. I believe. I remember hearing it on a thingy. I might have this mixed up with something else, but I'm pretty sure that it wasn't that he died. He just literally was like, fuck that. I'm just gonna leave you with 7 kids. This is a bit much for me. Bye. Like in these times when there's too many children and a mother can't support her children, well, she's got to start getting rid of them. Baby just came out. Can't get rid of that baby. You know? Baby brother, still just a little baby.
Yeah.
Can't get rid of that one. Older girl is just old enough to help with chores. 2 older brothers, well, they can get jobs and shit. 5-year-old Deborah, what's she gonna do?
Yeah.
Bye. Goodbye, she says. Yeah, I love you so much, goodbye. Sends her with her cousin. Cousin Fuller, which is an old-ass lady, raised Deborah from that point. Good for her, because she would call her a cousin, and she got her own bed rather than having to share. She taught her reading, writing, math, set her up for a lot of disappointment later in life by educating her. So she's educated this 5-year-old. About that time is when she receives word that her father's died. So that sucks for her. But this is, I've looked through some old ass books, luckily PDF versions, and this is what was said about Cousin Fuller. This was a very honest and discreet lady. She showed her young pupil many tokens of care and affection. But as Miss Sampson remarked, as I was born to be unfortunate, my sun soon clouded. She had not continued in this agreeable situation scarcely 3 years before her benefactress was seized with a violent malady which in a few days proved fatal. So at 8 years old, the old lady dies after teaching her stuff, and she has to go in the care of somebody else. So she's sent to an old country-type place, this time the Thomas family, outside of a town on a farm. Lots of sons, no daughters, so she's the only girl. Deborah's taught to spin, weave, sew, cook, and tend to the animals. She does this daily. One day, she asked to go to the schoolhouse that all the boys get to go to. And Mr. Thomas just laughs at her and is like, well, you already know how to write your name. That's more than his wife knew. And he figured that was more than any woman needed to either. So he didn't believe in the education of women, which is a common thing at the time. Even other women, famous satires and parodies written by women, basically laughing at it. It's so ironic.
It's still the case in some places in the world now.
Yeah, very true.
Insane.
So what she did was the brothers started teaching her. So they'd come home with their lessons and she'd ask them on the sly and they would teach her how to write and stuff and do their homework. So it's a win-win situation. So she starts to grow up, she's becoming a young woman, and this whole time she's hearing stories. Basically, one of the stable boys locally watched in Boston when a young boy threw snowballs at Kingsmen's soldiers, and the soldiers raised their muskets and fired into the crowd. This was called the Boston Massacre. And she also heard other stories, and these were people coming in from Boston, coming down and basically stoking the flames of revolution because shit was going down. People were dying, essentially, at this point. Just normal people, being oh, fuck off, British. But they're also dealing with loyalists and things like that. So it's not, America wasn't completely united at this point in the idea of revolution. There were a lot of people who were quite happy with the way things were, as is often the case when progress is about to happen. This is from the book. Miss Sampson, though not an eyewitness of this distress, was not insensible of it. She learned that the inhabitants of Boston were confined by an unprovoked enemy, that they were not only upon the point of perishing for want of sustenance, but that many had actually been massacred, their public and private buildings of elegance shamefully defaced or quite demolished, and that many of her own sex were either ravished or deluded to the sacrifice of their chastity, which she had been taught to revere, even as dear life itself. Shit's happening. And it's not good to be a woman at any time, it seems. Way. But especially, it's not good news, and she's getting pissed off. Yeah. She's educated enough to know what it means. And it's probably a tomboy. It's probably, who knows where she is on the spectrum. I wouldn't even care to guess, but, she's a strong person who doesn't like her own situation and the frustrating feeling of not being able to help. And she is 5'8". The average male height at this time is 5'5". The average female height is something like 5 foot. She is a tall woman among people. And she's not crazy fair by those standards of those days. She's just a normal lady who happens to be tall and fucking able to do lots of shit. And she's strong. She could probably fucking beat people up. And just imagine living like that, being taller than most of the people you know, and revolution's brewing, you're hearing about people getting raped and murdered, and you're I'd be roided up wanting to punch someone. But then you're wearing petticoats and you're not allowed to do anything about it. So, just because you have a vagina, sorry. So, also news of events like the Boston Tea Party came. How does that feel, Violet? Took that tea and dumped it. Violet's not reacting whatsoever. She doesn't care. I just thought we were gonna have a British versus American battle this episode if I bring up the revolution. Yeah. That's the true British we're still an empire, young America. That's just the British silence.
We're just too classy to say anything.
Yeah.
We know better than to get in a fight about it.
Did you hear that thing about Britain is so polite and classy that it doesn't even tell Canada off for taking credit for being the polite country?
That's how we just understand the things that should be said, the things you shouldn't say, the things that can remain unspoken, but everyone knows it on a deep subconscious level.
Oh man. So, okay, 18th birthday comes around. Deborah Sampson is free. Alright, no dad, no fucking husband. She can do whatever she wants, right? Oh, but shit, she wants to travel. It doesn't sound like a great idea. See the sights of America? No. You know why, Violet? Because she's a woman.
Yes.
And if she travels unescorted, she'll ruin her reputation.
Yeah. Who knows what undocumented things you get up to if you're out and about without an escort.
And you know the fragile gender of woman. She will just fuck anything. She's designed for wanting to fuck for babies. So who knows what she's up to.
Yeah.
Unescorted.
Or just, it's her fault if anything were to happen. They just shouldn't. You're not allowed to their property that can't be let alone.
So she's in this dilemma. She can't really travel without,
No.
being seen as a fucking whore. Sex worker, sorry. And even a free woman could not ask questions easily or speak freely without ruining her reputation. Because if she starts going, hey, I want to go traveling, they're going to think, who is this crazy woman? She's like, hey, I want to do something other than weave. No, you're crazy. Shut up. Isn't she the woman that talks? Little Mermaid sums it up in Ursula's song, like, we can't afford to sing it for you. So she made her living as a weaver and a spinner for a little while. She tried to go it straight, so to speak. And she was asked to teach at the school that she wasn't allowed to attend as a child. She was asked to be a teacher there. But only for a summer, and then they hired a man. Don't worry.
Okay. I was panicking then.
You thought she might actually...
They may not get the education they deserve from the female teacher. Jesus.
So, but this entire time, all this frustration and the American Revolution happening, fuck it. Arguably spring of 1781, I'm not going to go through, there's a million, it was with most history, people are like, no, it's this year, this time.
Something happened.
Yeah. Recruiting was happening everywhere, and they all wanted people that were, there was a lady on YouTube who read out one of the newspapers, the actual newspapers, so it's like a bit of this, paraphrased. Brave, young, strong people with a penchant for traveling and fighting. Unfortunately, the only thing that might keep you from this was being a woman.
Oh no.
Fuck it. Debbie sewed herself some dude clothes using the weaving and sewing skills she had. She made herself some breeches. She made herself a nice shirt. She went to Bellingham, Massachusetts for recruitment. I think it's Massachusetts, sorry. She signed her name. She took her deceased brother Robert Sampson's shirtless name. Shit's going down.
Oh yeah. God disguise.
But not everyone did not notice Sampson was gone. This is from the local church that took action once she left. The church considered the case of Deborah Sampson, a member of this church who last spring was accused of dressing in men's clothes and enlisting as a soldier in the army. And although she was not convicted, yet was strongly suspected of being guilty, and for some time before behaved very loose and unchristian-like, and at last left our parts in a sudden manner. And it is not known among us where she is gone, and after considerable discourse it appeared that as several brethren had labored with her before she went away without obtaining satisfaction, concluded it is the church's duty to withdraw fellowship until she returns and makes Christian satisfaction.
Oh my God.
She was discommunicated from a Christian church.
What the fuck?
It's okay. She stays discommunicated for her life, so she doesn't have to deal with that at least. She's so badass the church is like, get out.
Hell yeah.
Behaving in a loose and unchristian-like manner. My favorite type of woman. She enlisted in the 4th Massachusetts Regiment of the Continental Army, which is what the army's called. At first, she was sort of like made fun of for being very laddie. They thought she looked very young and boyish.
Yeah.
Because of her femininity, probably.
Yeah.
But she was quite tall,
Well, I
and
mean,
they made fun of her lack of facial hair.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Basically,
it's very hard to get a beard if you're, for some women anyway.
This is the thing. So she didn't have facial hair, but like all those behaviors that the church was listing about her, like loose and behaviors not fitting, blah blah blah, all that stuff. She realized when she was in the army, the same stuff that they fucking like tore her down for as a woman, the men loved. They loved everything about her behavior, who she was. Like, they thought she was great. She was, like, noble, like, someone you could, really funny, and she was very modest. If she had to go to the toilet and stuff, could you imagine that's gonna, she would just go off on her own. And the men, rather than doing this thing where, like, in most movies where, like, the men all have to pee together or they're insisting, it's not like that. They respect each other's privacy and space and stuff, so... One of her first missions was to provide General George Washington with intelligence by spying on the British in Manhattan. In September 1781, her company arrived in Yorktown, engaged in a battle against the British. Deborah dug trenches. She dealt with the fucking returning fire. They stormed the fucking defenses. So it's like a real battle.
Yeah.
She's embroiled in. She's in the middle of the fucking American Revolution. She's making a difference. She's part of the revolution. Any tiny person made such a difference. And the fact that she's out there, like, oh, it's crazy. So British General Cornwallis eventually would surrender. In the battle, she lost a lot of brothers in arms, and this would affect her for the rest of her life. I mean, now we'd call it post-traumatic stress disorder.
You get close to a bit of crazy fighting and danger, you're going to get PTSD.
Yeah, exactly. So she,
Everyone back then must have had PTSD.
Yeah,
like
just
literally
living.
Everybody. Just like everyday life. Going to the shop to buy milk would have been, not that they had milk.
We're going to do Oregon Trail stories at some point, but like I read some of those recently, and it was said in a diary written by a man at the time. He's like, women were expected to be 10 times stronger.
Oh my god, being a settler,
virtuous.
It just sounds like the worst time ever.
Women had the big heavy dresses and stuff.
And the fact that people had escaped other situations and other countries and bad times over there, and settler life, and having that just a chance of a fresh start.
And so these are the descendants of those settlers.
That was better.
Yeah, these are the survivors. These are the strong-ass survivors.
These are the people who, generations later, have created families of tow truck operators in Canada. They are the people that rescue the ice road truckers, who are the manliest, most crazy, risk-taking, insane lorry drivers in the world.
Everything becomes
the people
about
that
the
rescue them. Not even about ice truckers. This is about Heavy Rescue 401 and Highway Through Hell. That's my piece on American Canada.
That's the thing. Like, these are hardy folk.
Hardy folk. I'll give you that.
Who are pushed to the brink by the British.
I'll give you that.
So she's fighting for something she truly believes in. There's something to be said for people who fought in the American Revolution when it's a cause you could get behind. If you were behind it, you were going to go full on. Every revolution is painted in passion. Otherwise it doesn't happen. There has to be those really strong feelings, and to be outnumbered as well. Like, America. All right, so shit, she fucking gets wounded. So in 1782, outside of Tarrytown, New York, the British Tories attacked. There was a giant fist fight. Deborah had a large gash in her head.
Oh, no.
And the regiment pushed the British back, but she'd also been shot twice in the thigh. So someone was playing dirty. So she didn't want treatment, but her fellow soldiers rode her out there despite her protest. She's like,
this is like the moment in Mulan.
This is
on the stretcher and the...
Yep. And she's like, I swear Mulan is based on her.
They definitely took inspiration from that.
So she's like shot in the thigh, where it's obvious if they pull anything away, they're gonna know right away. She lets them fix the gash and then fucks off. She flees, right? So you know what she does then? She fucking takes the musket balls out herself.
Oh, yeah.
And sews her own wound back up. Because because she's like, I'm not done fighting yet.
No.
Because I believe in the revolution, and I'm not fucking done. I think there was another story I heard somewhere where she like was saved other soldiers by when there was like a General George Washington was involved, and it was like the river and shit, the Delaware River shit, and she was carrying soldiers Forrest Gump style, one by one, swimming through a fucking river, all stealthily, like.
Epic.
I can't.
Can you imagine pulling musket balls out of your leg? Like, are you in that much pain that you don't feel pain anymore? Are you just like digging in your wounds?
She's risking her life by doing that.
Digging in painful, burning wounds with like meaty blood. Oh, just.
She's. This is the thing, and she's like, okay, do I keep fighting and let them? Here's the thing: she's risking her life either way, because by doing it, it's a treasonous act. She can get hanged as a woman for fighting in the war.
Yeah,
that's a fact, and it's up to George Washington. If she ever gets discovered, what happens to her? She also can die from infection. She knows that. They know that she's not a doctor. She's pulling out musket balls like, oh, I hope this doesn't fucking fester. But this is what she's dealing with. But she needs to fight for her country. She cannot sit back idly by and fucking sew while other people die when she's 5'8" and has good aim. And can punch a motherfucker and take a gash to the head and still be like, no, man, no, it's all right. It's all right. Go on without me. No, it's cool. I don't need the doctor. It's all good. She's displaying classic, like, Rambo or, like, you know, every action hero dude that's like, go on without me, man. Like, that's what she's doing. So basically, she still needs time to get better after this, and she can't see a doctor. So she volunteers to help another soldier, getting permission from higher-ups to nurse them at a house of the Van Tassels. Mr. Van Tassel gave them food and lodging, paid for by the Americans, the Revolutionaries, but soon they were like confined in an attic, her and this other suffering soldier. And then one day she's like, okay, well, can we have some straw as a bed for this soldier? Because he's really in a lot of pain. He's fucking dying. And Van Tassel exclaimed, the floor and fastings are good enough for rebels. So all of a sudden they realize they're in the fucking hands of Tories taking money from the Revolutionaries. Oh, no. Right? And that night, she could hear loyalists called the Cowboys, this group of loyalists, who were probably also Tories. She could hear them talking. And she knew they had to leave as soon as possible. But the Van Tassel's daughter was a sympathizer and snaky as fuck and liked her. And probably knew she was a woman. I don't know. I didn't read much about it, but like it seemed like they got along. Maybe they were synced up or something.
BFFs.
Yeah. So she would bring them food and water when she could. I mean, maybe she had a little crush on her. Like, I don't know. So 10 nights, but her soldier friend Snow died. You know. And she was like, fuck this, and sneaks out, finds a way to get out, and exposes Van Tassel to her higher-ups. And with the help of his daughter, she conspires to take them all down. So she returns with troops to capture the Tories. They let them all get drunk. And Van Tassel's daughter, basically, while these guys are drinking, nicks their guns. She starts stealing their guns while they're drinking. Whoa. So they don't have any guns. They're all getting drunk, you know. And then the troops basically shoot a bunch, like, in the air. And these fuckers stumble out drunkenly without realize they don't have any weapons. And then they basically are forced to surrender. And basically Deborah goes, okay, in exchange for food and horses, they can let Van Tassel go. Okay. So no blood was shed. And it's one of her proudest moments. She's like, I didn't have to kill anybody. I didn't have to do nothing, man. All I had to do was, like, trick this motherfucker who thought he was cute. Over the next several months, she keeps fighting. She was an aide to John Patterson, a general, and she was tasked to quell an uprising. But she caught a severe fever, and she lost consciousness and was taken to hospital. So she has no way to stop what's about to happen to her.
Oh, no.
Dr. Benjamin Benny examines her.
Geez, Benjamin Benny.
Benjamin Benny.
So American.
Who needs 2 first names?
Just change it back to Benjamin Button already.
He discovers she's a woman.
Right.
Classic movie scene. But to his credit, he doesn't tell anybody. He covers her back up as soon as he finds out. He, like, opens her vest, is like, tits. Oh, shit. Covers her back up, takes her to his house, basically makes up some bullshit. This is my idea of it. He goes, gosh, her wounds are pretty bad. I'm gonna have to, I think I have this tool at home. I'm gonna have to take her home. Takes her home, and him and his wife nurse her back to health.
Well, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. But he does let the general know she's a woman. So he does rat her out. He has to. Yeah. He's a doctor. It's two conflicting things. He doesn't want to get her in trouble. He knows she'll die. Yeah. He knows the consequences. But Patterson contacts General George Washington. And instead of being hanged, Washington's so impressed, I guess. I don't know. This is me imagining. But she was granted an honorable discharge, which is obviously unprecedented. Yeah, sweet. She gives lectures around the country after this on shit that's going down, but she doesn't receive a pension. And she becomes impoverished. She marries, has a few kids, has a really lovely life, but they're very poor and they struggle for a long time. 1804, Paul Revere. The British are coming, Paul Revere. Massachusetts District, Deborah Gannett of Sharon, so she's changed her last name with marriage. In the county of Norfolk and District of Massachusetts, a resident and native of the United States, an applicant for a pension from the United States. So she applies for a pension. An act to provide for certain persons engaged in the land and naval services of the United States in the Revolutionary War, make it that she served as a private soldier under the name of Robert Shirtliff in the War of the Revolution upward of 2 years. High Manor following enlisted April 1781 in company commanded by Captain George Webb, blah, 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 blah. She was honorably discharged in writing, which discharge is lost. During the time of her service, she captured Lord Cornwallis, was wounded at Tarrytown, and now she receives a pension, which she hereby relinquishes. She is in reduced circumstances as to require the aid of her country for her support. So basically, she keeps applying for pensions, and people like Paul Revere and that are so, like, impressed by her that, like, give her a pension, goddammit. So fucking Congress and a committee of Congress fucking passes it, a special thing just for her. So not only can she receive a pension, but should she die and make a widower of her husband, he'll receive her pension. And it's just amazing. They say about her husband, some people were like calling him a sympathizer, like, and this is what's said about her, you know, and saying that the whole of the American Revolution records no case like this and furnishes no other similar example of female heroism, fidelity, and courage. The petitioner does not allege that he served in the War of the Revolution, her husband, and it does not appear by any evidence as the case that such was a fact. So even her husband didn't serve. It is not, however, to be presumed that a female who took up arms in the defense of her country, who served as a common soldier for nearly 3 years and fought and bled for human liberty, would immediately after the termination of the war connect herself for life with a Tory or a traitor. So they're saying her husband's all right. She wouldn't do that. He indeed was much honored by being the husband of such a wife, and he has proved himself worthy of her, as he has sustained her through a life of sickness and suffering, due to the occasioned by the wounds she received and the hardship she endured in defense of her country. And as there cannot be a parallel case in all tune to come, the committee do not hesitate to grant relief. Sweet. So fucking gave her pension. Yeah. It makes me want to cry. I like honestly get teary when I read it because it's just crazy what she did. Like, she was the only one. Yeah. Nobody else did that. How insane. And you know who that's signed by? Approved. John Hancock. Aww. So it's just...
How sweet she's that so they finally...
integral. Yeah. But that's my story. That's Deborah Sampson, one of my favorite people in history.
An absolutely brilliant story. Very well told.
I didn't do it any justice because I just wanted to get the basic facts out there. Unless you really read all the books, you're not going to get the full picture. But please look her up. There's a few things on her, but there really isn't enough on her.
It's so fascinating. What a story. Like, really, what an extraordinary life to have
Mulan.
led. Really, like the true Mulan.
American Mulan. I feel like a lot of it is definitely inspired by Deborah Sampson.
Oh yeah, there's definitely, like, people have used bits of...
I know that it's also obviously some Chinese history, obviously mostly inspired by Chinese history, but I feel like there are elements of where they borrowed.
Well, a lot of, like, the, you know, female soldier characters...
all sorts,
are sourcing their stories in a bit of truth and stuff.
I mean, they all have to go through the same shit.
Exactly. Super, super fascinating, super extraordinary.
I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. I couldn't live in that time period.
No.
I guess at that time period I would probably, who knows, a lot of, you're stuck in that life, so
you just don't know any better. You have to
or...
deal with what you get.
Yeah.
Make the best of it and survive.
That's why I'm grateful for the certain freedoms I have to speak out and, like, you know, certain things like that, express my femininity, but we're not all the way there yet. And, you know, if you think about it, America's such a young country. This wasn't that long ago. And
no, that's the crazy stuff, is that it's like, the crazy thing about a lot of this stuff is that it is really so recent in a way.
We're getting there.
I hope so.
Deborah Sampson, she's so cool.
Okay, so I picked this story like ages ago.
Oh yeah.
Because I knew I was going to have to work it in at some point. So this episode is like the perfect way for me to steer this story into World-weary. And I'd already picked it. I'd already written or kind of planned my story for today. But I just went away for a weekend in Cornwall to visit our families down there. And so I was exploring the beaches, the smugglers' caves and tunnels there.
Morgan was saying that Aunt wanted to take you through a tunnel that takes you right to the pub.
Absolutely, the Coffin Cave on Porthpean Beach, which is, I think, like an old smuggler's tunnel, and I'll show you a picture of it.
Ooh.
I'll share this on like social media or something for you guys to see as well. But yeah, it's literally a cave, like kind of quite high up on a cliff that literally looks like a vertical coffin.
Ugh.
Okay? Look at that.
Ew.
That's water at the bottom
my
there.
gosh.
And it supposedly goes all the way into the town.
Wow.
At St. Austell and like comes up below a pub or something. But so creepy. I'll definitely share some pics of that for you guys to see. So I was getting even more into the story because I was kind of in the world of pirates.
Ooh.
Oh wee. So my story today is about Anne Bonny and Mary Read, who are some of the most famous British pirate ladies.
I've heard of Mary Read.
Here we go, because this is...
I don't want you to yell about my pirate history, but I know a little bit about Mary Read.
Well, that's good, you know. It's good because you're going to be able to very much vibe with the story of these ladies. So most of what we know about the characters in my story today comes from this 18th century book called A General History of the Robberies and Murders of the Most Notorious Pirates. That's when they spell pirates with a Y.
Yes.
OG. It's supposedly written by Captain Charles Johnson, although it's possible that was actually a pseudonym. It's someone else. Who knows? Anyway. Everyone that is interested in the golden age of piracy should own this book. I personally have a copy, although apparently the second edition is much embellished, aka they jazzed it up and exaggerated everything to sell more of the second edition. But the first edition was actually published literally only a few years after the events of my story. So that's, pretty good source on pirates for that time.
Yeah.
Let me take you back to Kinsale, County Cork, Ireland.
All right.
Around 1700, an unmarried servant called Mary Brennan conceives a child with her employer, a lawyer by the name of William Cormac. William is a married man to a rather rich wife. So, it's a pretty shit situation.
It always happened as well.
A lot back then.
It's basically slavery back then as well, being a maid.
Yeah, bad times. Anyway, Mary Brennan gives birth to our girl, Anne.
Ooh.
We don't always associate Anne with, as a name of, a badass girl.
That's my mother-in-law's name, and she is a badass.
She's a tiger, a fierce tiger.
But, I mean... it can strike fear. I'm gonna sell it to
Bring back Anne. This is a badass
Anne.
name. Anne's father, William Cormac, the lawyer, he isn't really enjoying the company of his wife very much. And he actually moves all the way to London from like the freaking edge of Ireland.
Oh, wow.
To get away from his wife and her family. He takes his servant lady Mary.
Oh, wow.
And he also takes in their illegitimate daughter, Anne.
Okay.
Yeah, so they're all living together in London. He's trying to be a lawyer there.
He gets some points, I guess.
But to protect Anne, or hide the fact that he actually has an illegitimate child, maybe, he dresses Anne up as a boy.
Yes.
He calls her Andy.
No.
And he intends to bring her up to be a lawyer's clerk.
Wow.
So William thinks he got away with it. He's living it up in London being a lawyer. He's enjoying life with his mistress and his child, away from his annoying wife, etc. in Ireland. However, William's wife finds out about her husband's infidelity, that he is cohabiting with his servant woman, and that he has taken in the illegitimate child from the union.
Penny finally drops, does it?
So she cuts off his allowance.
Oh,
which was like that was like the biggest thing you could do. Still, as rich lady, she couldn't like sever him off or anything. All she could do was cut off his pocket money. That was the baddest thing. Still, it's bad. So William and his wife kind of essentially they separate. However, the scandal tarnishes his reputation. He loses many of his clients. He's got no pocket money or allowance from his wife. His business turns sour.
Oh, shit.
So William Cormac decides to move to what was then called Charlestown in the province of Carolina, North America.
Oh, shit.
Which is now called... What do Americans do to proper British words? Abbreviate them into Charleston.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Which is South Carolina?
I like, as soon as I moved here, I started to assign space that was previously about America, about all the things I needed to learn to survive in this culture. So I couldn't tell you anything about America sometimes.
You've
but yeah,
blocked
Charleston,
it all out.
I want to say that is South Carolina, but I don't fucking know.
Yeah, I think it is.
It could be North Carolina, because I remember we might have been going to move there, but I don't know.
Okay. Someone will
I'm an
let us know if
ignorant
I'm
American. I can't stress this enough. I'm the stupid one. It's just a fact. Like, I play video games.
The stupid one.
All right.
So, William Cormac, they all move there to Charlestown. He takes his mistress Mary Brennan and their daughter Anne there. I actually visited the OG Charlestown over the weekend because it's in Cornwall. So there we go. There's cute, like, little sloop, like, ships in the harbour.
And you know I grew up in Somerset in Maryland for a while. And ended up living in Somerset, UK. And it's just like all the towns, I'm like, oof.
Yeah.
I mean, I lived in a town, I lived near a town out in the boonies called Princess Anne. So, I mean, I knew as a young, her face is still like, as you drive into the town, her face is on this suspended thing in the town. Like,
you know, the craziest one though is there's a village like quite near here. I think it's in Somerset, called Pennsylvania.
Yeah, that creeped me out when I saw it.
When I drove past that for the first time, I freaked out. I was like, "Is that where?"
Yeah,
and that must be it.
Yeah,
insane. Where were we? Okay. Charleston, that's where they are. But back then it was called Charlestown, which is the proper pronunciation. Anyway, they have a rough start there. Because, you know, this is like early days of America. Things are kind of hard. It's all a bit crazy. But William Cormac, he puts his lawyer expertise to work. And he manages to actually get them, you know, a nice sort of townhouse or something. And eventually, he does so well that they upgrade to their own freaking plantation on the edge of Charlestown.
Is she still dressing as a boy and assuming a boy's identity?
I'll get to that.
Okay.
I'll get to that.
Okay,
so
sorry, I get excited.
No, it's fine. We're covering everything here. So, you know, he tries to establish himself as an attorney. He doesn't really go that well for him, so he starts business as a sort of merchant. buying and selling stuff, and he actually makes quite the fortune, becomes a fairly wealthy landowner there. So now that he's away from his wife and everything in Charlestown, he sort of started fresh, started a new life. He doesn't have to hide Anne anymore, so she doesn't have to disguise herself as a boy.
Oh, okay.
So although things have been looking up financially and they've got this great fresh start in Charlestown, around the time Anne turns 12 or 13 probably, her mother contracts typhoid fever and dies.
No. Yeah.
But Anne's growing up, she's quite striking looking, she's got red hair, and is described as being a good catch. You know, she's attractive, confident, smart, quite respectable in many ways. You know, people would have known that her father was a businessman and he had a bit of money and land behind him. However, she's also described as having quite an angry or fiery personality.
Yeah.
Maybe that's just what people love to attribute to redheads.
Yeah, there is a sense of that.
She gets in fights. She stands up to people. Charlestown could be quite a dangerous place, but she was pretty streetwise. She knew how to defend herself.
I like her already.
But, you know, her anger and whatnot was, you know, quite, you know, really feared. I mean, it was even rumoured that as a teenager, she'd actually got into an altercation and stabbed one of the family's own serving girls.
I shouldn't be rooting for her at this point when she stabs somebody, but I really am. Oh my gosh.
So sometime around 1714 to 1718, dates really aren't clear with this, when Anne would have, you know, been of relatively marriageable age at the time, you know, because she would have been a teenager.
Yeah. You become a spinster at 23, and then there's an even worse word for older than that I can't remember. It's like something, it sounds like a slur.
Yeah. Different times, people.
It's like a tinny-wick or something. I don't know. Tinny-wick? I don't know where that came from. Continue.
That may have to be the name for our fan base.
The Tinny-wicks.
So, her father, he tries to arrange for Anne to be wed to a local man of Charlestown.
Lovely.
What do we think about arranged marriages? Would you let your dad marry you off?
Back then or now?
Now.
God knows what he would have chosen. My dad couldn't choose a partner. Like, my dad was like, I couldn't entrust him with those decisions. None of my parents could be trusted with that kind of decision. They could be barely trusted with their own situation, all right? Like, I'm not going to entrust my future with them. I would have hated that. If my parents were back in the day dressed up, like, oh, we'll find you. I'm going to find you a nice boy. I would have been like, no! She would have found, like, a person to spite me for the rest of my life. Parents sometimes are not nice people.
Can't be trusted.
They can't be trusted with that kind of stuff. I mean, it works for some people, and especially in some places where
I wonder if
not everyone has. It's not like the movies where everyone has a special someone and it's easy. And you know, some people have a hard time. There's a reason why arranged marriages have existed throughout history and still exist today, and are becoming more popular in places like China, where there are very a disparity between the sexes in certain areas, and people are very lonely.
I wonder if I was viewing marriage down the lens of it being like a business.
Yeah, back then it would make sense.
It would have made sense to me, but yeah, now there's no way.
I would have been so naive. I know my personality. If I lived back then, I would have screwed myself over and done the thing right by my parents and gone for the rich dude that probably had a weird dungeon. Like,
no. So yeah, her dad finds some guy. He wants her to get married to him, but I don't know, maybe it was a decent dude, but it could have just been someone like really boring, like maybe a gross old businessman, who knows, you know, you're like known as like the striking, like hot, like good catch girl, and then your dad tries to set you up with like some smelly old creep. Okay, you wouldn't be into it. So, you know, what we do know is that Anne was definitely not interested. She did not want to marry whoever this guy was, and she meets this dude called James Bonny. He's a poor sailor and like a small-time, part-time pirate.
Yeah.
I kind of imagine, like, he must have been kind of hot or dashing, like a little bit of a bad boy, like probably quite young.
She's everything her father hated, and that's enough.
It was the picking, like, douchebag bad boy boyfriend who, like, you're kind of, like, charmed by when you're, like, younger and more naive.
Yeah.
But
it's not a good idea in the long run, maybe.
You quickly realise it's all a facade. So Anne goes against her father's wishes, and she gets married to James Bonny. One of the red flags for me about James Bonny is that he blatantly had his eye on Anne's father's wealth and his estate. So, like, by marrying Anne, he had hoped to win possession of William Cormac's plantation.
Oh my gosh.
But they fecked up because William Cormac does so not approve of his daughter's choice of douchebaggy little husband. He kicks Anne out of his house. He disowns her. And thus, Anne and James Bonny are, like, totally disinherited from the family fortune.
But
so pissed is Anne Bonny with her father that the rumour goes around that she actually retaliated to this by setting fire or attempting to set fire to her father's plantation. Kind of sounds to me as well like James Bonny was probably a bit of a tool. Like, poor Anne, she might have just been a bit naive or desperate. Maybe James Bonny was like a good way of escaping her situation or like avoiding getting married to some smelly old creep. But anyway, Anne and James Bonny, they're at a loose end. He's just this like shitty, low-life pirate, like a bad sailor, like no money. Anne's been kicked out of the fancy estate. But Anne is like, she's going to stick with a bad boy. And she's like, feck everyone. Let's go and be pirates.
Let's do it. Fucking do it.
So
that's a strong decision.
Through James's small-time piracy connections, the two of them set sail from Charlestown and they go to Nassau on New Providence Island in the Bahamas, aka Pirate Fecking Paradise. Why was Nassau pirate paradise? So after a bunch of battles and military occupations in the Bahamas at the end of the 17th century, Nassau was one of the islands that kind of got abandoned. You know, the Bahamas were sparsely populated, and even from 1703 to 1718, there wasn't even a proper governor in the Bahamas to manage everything.
Didn't they used to send people there as like a punishment as well, like to govern it?
Yeah, it was. There's hell a lot of outlaws and all kinds of like weird people about. So there wasn't even a proper governor there. So the islands became a freaking haven for pirates. There were more pirates than just like regular Joes. At the time, it was actually known as the Republic of Pirates. It was basically the headquarters for about 2,000 pirates.
Jesus
they
Christ.
estimate 2,000 pirates. Even Blackbeard was like rocking up there to party.
Nice.
It was the go-to place for the golden age of piracy. And if you want to get into the headspace of Nassau, I highly recommend that you watch the Black Sail series. Get through the first few episodes, and it's such a winner. They're up in Nassau. You really get the vibe. So Anne Bonny and her husband settle in Nassau, which is, you know, basically the sanctuary for pirates. It's pirate town. However, we're getting towards the end of the golden age of piracy, and things have they're getting out of hand. All these pirates are like living it up on the island, and it hasn't gone unnoticed. Time for a crackdown on the pirates.
Oh.
So in the summer of 1718, a new governor, Governor Woodes Rogers, is sent there to essentially suppress piracy. As governor, Rogers gets loads of the pirates and outlaws there to surrender. He dishes out all these royal pardons if they will conform to a kind of legal lifestyle and give up piracy.
So just be like...
So rather than trying to like kill or arrest all like 2,000 pirates and all their like weird outlaw mates, the plan was to convert them.
Yeah,
so it'd be like, hey,
turn into a massacre.
Exactly. It's like, hey, like one-eyed Bluebeard, you know, you're good at slicing people with that sword. Ever thought about being the island butcher? You know, like, they basically do this, like, general amnesty program for the pirates at Nassau. And over time, Governor Rogers does successfully, I mean, he's known for this, he successfully clamped down on piracy. He reformed civil administration, commerce.
Wow.
He even rebuilt the fort there, like using his own money to try and turn it into like a decent civilized place. So he was probably quite a smart chap, but we'll see. So Anne's husband, James Bonny, he's a shitty small-time pirate. I think he's probably a bit of a slimy dude anyway. He establishes himself as like a professional snitch.
No, I love professional snitches and stories.
He's employed as an informant for Governor Rogers. He gets himself a sweet job that he thinks so freaking great. He's in the pocket of the governor. So he go down, he's like, oh yeah, hey governor, I used to be a pirate and I'm friends with some shitty pirates. I can snitch for you.
Because he's no good at piracy.
So he's down in the tavern, drinking with the pirates, pretending he's still a shitty part-time pirate.
I feel like I know this guy.
Eavesdropping and finding out their plans. And then he'll sneak over to the governor's office and tell him all the gossip and get chucked a little bag of coins. So Anne, who's been to maybe set her dad's plantation on fire out of her desire to run off and be this amazing married woman having this romantic wild lifestyle. And now she's with this freaking slimy snitchy dude. She's totally disenchanted with her marriage. She was so young and naive, when she'd been swept off her feet by this bad boy, she thought they'd said, fuck you world, run away to the Bahamas to the pirate kingdom to live free, and, the swashbuckling wild lifestyle. And it turns out James isn't, the true pirate rebel. No,
he's
he's a slimy, low-life dude
do anything
paid
for
to
$1, doing anything for $1 or a pound.
So Anne is bored of sitting around in their crappy house being this low-life sailor snitch wife. So she starts hanging out in the taverns of Nassau, mingling with the pirates. Whilst James is out snitching and sneaking around, and she's this beautiful, young redhead. She can hold her own amongst the pirates.
Probably hold her liquor.
Probably doing stuff impressing all the pirates by juggling daggers and catching a knife in her mouth or something.
She's used to stabbing a bitch.
Exactly. She's badass and hot. Anyway, meanwhile, she's in the bars impressing everyone. A cool as fuck pirate ship called Ranger pulls into port at Nassau. Off of the ship comes the new captain of Ranger, John Rackham, aka the infamous English pirate Calico Jack.
All right.
He gets his name from calico clothes that he wears. Calico is an affordable dyed or printed cotton cloth from India.
Okay.
That was very popular and very cheap in the 1700s. And it was often almost a bit gaudy and brightly printed.
Nice. So he's why pirates are seen as flashy
Calico
as well.
Jack, he was a bit of a trendsetter, an eccentric. He was there wearing crazy fashion clothes. Maybe he was enjoying a bold print at the time. And he's also a super smart, cunning pirate. But he's also known for being quite gentlemanly and playing fair. So he didn't make too many enemies amongst the other pirates. So he's a cool dude.
He's not going to try and cheat you out of your share.
Exactly. It doesn't take long for Anne Bonny and Calico Jack to make friends.
Ooh.
And they start having an intensely romantic affair. However, James Bonny, Anne's stupid husband, figures out what's going on. He probably found a pirate's eye patch in his bed that wasn't his or something.
What is this flower print?
So James Bonny's pissed. He confronts Anne and then he marches her to Governor Rogers' office.
What?
Yeah, and the governor charges Anne with adultery and orders for her to be whipped as punishment.
I would kill him. Oh, it's all well and good for Snitchy McSnitch. Oh, suddenly he's the morality police.
So, Calico Jack, he's deeply in love with Anne. He goes to James Bonny and offers him a ton of money to buy in what was called a divorce by purchase, which was pretty common back then.
Yeah.
Seems to us like a good deal.
Yeah.
But for some reason, James Bonny absolutely refuses.
You know why? Because he's spiteful, and it's more
Yeah.
about him than her.
He's
He doesn't.
petty,
he's a
frickin'
petty,
slimy
slimy,
snitch. He couldn't be a
snitchy,
good sailor. He wasn't a good
psychopath.
pirate.
Egomaniac,
Yeah.
probably narcissistic.
So, kind of stupid. He should have just taken the money.
Now what's Calico Jack gonna do?
So, Anne Bonny and Calico Jack, fucking, of course, they escape the island.
Yes.
They get away from her stupid husband and the governor, and Calico Jack's like, I want to be with you, let's be pirates together, join my crew, and we'll sail the world as a pirate power couple.
Yes! Oh my god, she's the queen bee of Jay-Z of piracy.
Exactly, and Calico Jack Rackham, he was such a cool dude, because back then there were loads of superstitions about having women on board ships. You know, everyone said, oh, it's bad luck. You know, and also pirates, men in general at this time, especially pirates, it would have been quite dangerous to be a woman in the crew. You might not have been accepted, you could be more vulnerable to being singled out or attacked, even by other crew members, you know. So, they're kind of worried about that, but Anne's like, no problem, this can work. My dad used to dress me as a boy when I was a child and call me Andy. I passed as a boy then, I'm gonna pass as a man now.
Yes.
So, she joins Calico Jack's crew, disguised as a man, but she's got special privileges, aka sleeping with the captain a lot, hanging out in the captain's room. Some of the crew must have been a bit suspicious about this
I imagine they're used to all
clean-faced young man.
No, they're definitely. It's the way they see it though is like they're not going to say anything. I don't think I would. I don't know. They must be. Yeah.
So anyhow, the crew are supposedly none the wiser to Anne's true identity as a woman. She becomes a well-respected member of the crew. They think she's a great fighter, but apparently none of them clock on to the fact she's actually a lady. So Calico Jack and Anne Bonny and the crew, they sail around. They're pretty smart, so they target lots of smaller vessels to attack and steal from, and it's like an easy way to consistently bring in the treasure, rather than putting a lot of time and energy into like much riskier, bigger targets. So they're bringing in the peas. Anne becomes pregnant by Calico Jack. Shit. When the two of them realise, they're like, shit, that's gonna make things difficult.
Yeah, it's gonna be.
So Captain Calico Jack's like, okay, I got this sorted. And he's like, hey everyone, you guys deserve a holiday. We're gonna park up at Cuba for a bit, and I'm buying a round of cocktails for the whole crew. So Anne is able to land at Cuba, where she secretly gives birth to a son. And we don't know what happens to the child, but it's presumed she gave it away, or, you know, she left it with a relation or a friend on Cuba. You know, the pirate ship was no place for a baby, I'm sure. No one realises she's a lady yet. Anne and Calico Jack, they go back out to sea. Presumably the whole crew is refreshed from their mini break in Cuba. And Anne...
And a bunch of babies are born in Cuba.
Exactly. And Anne doesn't disguise herself amongst the crew anymore.
Oh, shit.
Maybe someone, you know, figured something out. Calico Jack, he's not stupid. You know, he totally sees her as an asset to the crew. All the pirates are impressed by stories of Anne's fierceness. They hear tales of how, as a youth, she had beaten an attempted rapist so badly that he almost died.
Yeah.
And she gains all of the pirates' respect.
They're like, oh shit, she'll fuck somebody up. And
she was a competent fighter.
But here's the thing. If you break it down to that story itself, oh, she beat a rapist almost to death. That takes away the whole, oh, she's weak enough that any man could have her. That takes that away. Yeah. You can't take her chastity from her. You can't take her choice from her, because she has equal strength in that respect, and they have to respect her in that time period.
Absolutely. So the only difference is that when they are attacked, or when they go to like pillage a ship, so basically during armed conflict, Anne does disguise herself as a man, but she's now got the crew behind her to kind of back her up, because they know.
Oh, yeah. And
they also see her as, you know, an equal. So basically, these guys are having an epic time being pirates. Anne manages... She's finally found the right one. She's living her pirate dream. Swashbuckling dude being pirate power couple. So Anne manages to find a way to get a divorce from James Bonny. And she and Calico Jack get married at sea in a pirate fucking wedding.
Yes!
This
Oh my
is the
gosh.
Brangelina of
Oh my
pirates.
gosh.
The ring bearer was probably a talking parrot.
Yes.
It was probably officiated by an old pirate captain with a hook for a hand and one leg. Like, "Arr, I now pronounce ye pirate husband and pirate wife."
Huzzah!
Most epic wedding ever.
Mm.
So now is probably a good point for me to introduce another lady to you, Mary Read.
Ooh.
So Mary had endured a pretty hard life.
Oh, no.
Like Anne, she was also born illegitimate, which was pretty rough back then. The story goes that her mother had been married to a sailor with whom she had had a young son, but her sailor husband gets lost at sea, and Mary's mother becomes pregnant from an affair, which was a no-no, especially because she was dependent on inheritance and income from her late husband's family. So she gives birth to Mary, the child of this affair, in secrecy and keeps her hidden away. Sadly, her young son dies shortly afterwards. Now, her late husband's mother, aka the grandma of the son, she was helping to pay the bills and sending money to care for the son.
Oh, shit.
So Mary's mother decides to disguise Mary as the dead son to keep the support checks coming in. So Mary had to live as the identity of her dead half-brother.
And back then, people don't visit as often, so probably the last time she saw the one was he was a baby anyway.
Exactly.
Oh my god.
And grandma didn't
How many
notice.
women were forced to dress in drag over stupid shit back in the day?
Grandma didn't notice. Glasses weren't very good back then.
Yeah, she's too busy fucking trying
When
to
you
be
go
around
blind, you go
toys.
blind.
They're too busy sticking red letters on other women to notice that their child, their grandchild, is a fucking girl.
And Mary and her mum lived off the inheritance quite happily and Granny's support checks for years and years. So, like Anne, Mary had also had a childhood of being disguised as a boy, but Mary literally grew up impersonating her dead half-brother. Her whole community
She's a child
must have been
actor.
fooled too.
Yeah, oh yeah.
You know, as she got a bit older, she actually got work as a footboy, basically a male servant, like the kind that run alongside the master's carriage. Disguised as a man, as an adult, Mary goes to work on a ship, and after that she joins the British military. She proves herself in battle, winning the admiration of her fellow soldiers in combat against the French.
Mary Read!
Whilst at war against the French, Mary meets and falls in love with a Dutchman who the British were allied with.
Oh.
Upon marriage to him, she is unveiled as a lady, and on the whole, her fellow soldiers who she did battle with were actually cool with it, and they gifted her loads of money to help her purchase an inn in the Netherlands as a wedding present.
Wow. They're like, you know what? Now that we know you're a lady, that's crazy hardcore. You had your parents shit.
There's a lot of money!
Just think, you're bleeding once a month as well, doing all this shit. You're tired, aching, feeling like you're dying once a month.
And you're out there kicking
and you're out there
the
killing
shit
the French.
out of the French. Sorry, France.
Sorry, France. We love you, France. Bullshit.
Sadly, Mary's husband dies young. So they get married. She's finally got a
She's got her
freaking
inn.
inn in the Netherlands. They were gonna
Perfect.
retire there. He dies young, and Mary's stuck in the Netherlands, a widow, not much to do. So she's like, okay, I've got not much to live for. I just got to go find my passion now and live that out. So she goes back to her male disguise and she enlists in the army, in the
All she
Dutch
knows
army.
is fighting. She's
But
probably angry as well.
What sucked for her is there was oddly a moment of peace for the Netherlands.
Oh no.
There were no wars for her to go fight. And she wasn't content with that, because this lady's a tiger who wanted to maim and fight and kill.
Well,
she
she's
loves
angry. Her
battle and
husband's
war.
died young.
She's got nothing else to live for.
No, she's just gonna
She
be
loves
like, I'm gonna
fighting.
fight until I die.
So she was like, sayonara Netherlands, and still in disguise, she hops on a ship to the West Indies in search of action.
Do we know her boy name that she goes by?
No, we don't, which is very frustrating.
What's her drag name, I wonder? Harry. What's her last name? Harry Read.
Oh god. Oh god.
Yes.
Anyway, she goes in search of action. Action finds her. Because who should attack the ship she's on to the West Indies?
The French? No.
Pirates.
Oh no!
And not just any pirates, but reportedly it was our pirate power couple, Anne Bonny and Calico Jack.
Shit.
They take the ship, and Mary willingly joins their crew, still in disguise as a man, and she sails with them to Nassau, the pirate republic.
Oh my god, does she fool?
They
Fucking...
all hit it off. Anne's like juggling daggers in the tavern. Mary Read is showing off her battle scars, and Mary Read is thinking, yes, this is the kind of action I've been looking for, and even better, there's a pirate woman on board, which means these guys must be cool. This is epic.
Yeah, this is amazing. Amazing how history ties itself. Like, the right people at the right time happens so often throughout history.
It's not really clear in the story whether Anne Bonny and Mary Read are like fooled by Mary's disguise, and I'll get onto that later.
Okay.
So we'll just kind of forget about that. We'll take them at
back burner.
Soul value for a little while. So, as I mentioned before, Anne Bonny and Calico Jack have been pretty successful pirates. They're being really smart. They're targeting loads of small vessels, and they're bringing in the treasure rather than, risking these like big armed ships, So they're bringing in the treasure, and now they've got Mary Read on side, who's a fucking epic, insane ex-soldier.
And she doesn't give a fuck, and she's not afraid.
And she wants
to
she's
fight.
in for this. She wants the action. So they've got her on side, and now the three of them are scheming their next move. Probably like drinking it up in the tavern. When this armed ship called the William anchors in the harbour at Nassau. Calico Jack doesn't have much of a crew at this point. Like, crews kind of moved around. They were a lot of them were just dudes just finding work when they could, hooking up with different pirates. It wasn't like super loyalty, like your crew stayed with you forever. Some people just come on one mission and then you drop them back in the pub in Nassau. And it was, a lot of people moving around.
Transient.
Yeah. So he doesn't have much of a crew at this point, so just the three of them, Anne Bonny, Calico Jack, and Mary Read, they fucking go and steal the William together.
No
the three
way.
of them, and sail it out to sea. Just the three of them.
Christ.
Together, they go off, they recruit a new crew, and they go and live the epic pirate life, sailing around Jamaica in the William, being smart, capturing loads of little vessels, and bringing home tons of treasure and having a brilliant time. Anne Bonny and Mary Read fight along with the pirate crew. They are respected by their shipmates. They're effective in combat. They're excellent pirates. Read and Bonny earn a reputation for ruthlessness and were described as reckless pirates, cursing and swearing much and very ready and willing to do anything on board. There's kind of story about how Anne and Mary both disguised themselves as men all the time, and they didn't realise they were both in disguise until they become lesbian lovers. It's possible they had a romantic relationship, but I don't really buy that they had any confusion. That sounds like a little bit of
fantasy.
Yeah, I think it was very much something that was added in at a later stage. I don't buy that there was any confusion about each other's identity,
Yeah.
People would know. Anne didn't hide the fact that she was a woman now. She only disguised herself for things like armed combat, when there would have been some advantages to dressing like that, practicality-wise. It's probably easier to run around in breeches than a girdle or whatever. Mary Read did dress or kind of masquerade as a man on the everyday, although the general consensus is that the others in the crew did realise or know that she was in fact a woman. They were just cool with it. Yeah. She was more comfortable with dressing like that. It wasn't a big deal. She was an asset to the crew. One of the victims of their pirate exploits, a woman called Dorothy Thomas, leaves a description of Mary Read and Anne Bonny. She said, they wore men's jackets and long trousers and handkerchiefs tied about their heads. And each of them had a machete and pistol in their hands.
Yes.
And they cursed and swore at the men to murder me.
Yes!
Thomas also recorded that she knew they were women from the largeness of their breasts. So this victim who was panicking could tell these were clearly ladies just wearing easy to fight in clothes.
So they had obviously chilled out with the crew in the sense that they're not binding their breasts.
Yeah, they're like pretty open about it.
Yeah.
And Anne Bonny certainly is very open with the crew.
Yeah.
She's the
Well, that's
wife of the
probably part of the
captain.
reason why it was easier for Mary. Like, why it's easy for her.
Yeah.
Because she just comes in and is just like, oh, shit.
Another one, and they're cool with it. This
They're
is
like,
already
oh.
a crew that have survived this far because they have been
ship's
cool.
lore as
And
well.
the captain is the one, probably implementing it, which is why I think he was probably an alright
Well,
dude.
you need allies.
Mary Read, she apparently meets a nice carpenter amongst the pirate crew and they fall in love.
Oh.
So they're all coupling up. However, the carpenter gets into a fight with another pirate and he's challenged to a duel.
Oh, no.
But Mary Read, she's very protective of her man, and being a freaking really experienced and excellent soldier and pirate, she intervenes and she fights and kills the pirate herself.
Yes. She's like,
so good.
how dare you duel? How dare you even try to duel my man? Because there might be conflict. Maybe there's a touch of jealousy there. Maybe there's a touch of
How badass,
killing the man
who
dared to
duel your dear little
carpentry
carpenter.
husband.
So they've been having a great time over the summer pillaging Jamaica. But things are starting to get a bit tricky. They're getting quite the reputation for piracy. Remember Governor Rogers from earlier?
Oh yeah, Mr. Crackdown.
He's on to Captain Calico Jack and his pirate crew.
Oh no.
And he also names Anne Bonny as a wanted pirate. Governor Rogers is particularly pissed that they stole the William. So he and the governor of Jamaica, who is also fed up with the pirates, they task a privateer, a renowned pirate hunter from the Royal Navy,
Oh shit.
called Captain Jonathan Barnett, with capturing the William and bringing Calico Jack, Anne Bonny, Mary Read and their pirate crew to justice.
Oh shit. Is he gonna do it?
On the 15th of November, our pirates, Calico Jack, Anne Bonny and Mary Read, and their crew, are hanging out off of the shore of
I don't like when you say a
Negril
date.
Point, Jamaica. And what are they doing? They're hosting a freaking rum party.
Yeah.
On board the William. The crew are partying and drinking with a load of pirate guests who aren't even part of the crew. Captain Jonathan Barnett, of course, seizes this opportunity. He catches up to them and launches a surprise attack on the partying pirates with a volley of fire, which basically messes up, partly destroys their party boat. The crew and guests, possibly including Captain Calico Jack, run and hide in the hold of the ship. They're all too drunk to fight properly, leaving only Anne Bonny, Mary Read, and one other unnamed dude to fight off Barnett's troops as they board the ship.
What the fuck?
Even though the other pirates were too drunk and apparently put up little resistance, Anne and Mary managed to actually hold off Barnett's boarding party for some time. Allegedly, Mary Read had time to angrily shoot into the hold where all the drunk pirates were cowering and hiding, killing one of them and wounding others because she was so angry that the men would not come up and fight with them.
They could have easily...
Barnett's troops, of course, eventually overcome Anne and Mary, and
only do so much.
Captain Calico Jack surrenders. The whole crew were arrested and brought to trial in what is now Spanish Town, Jamaica, where all of them were sentenced to hang for acts of piracy. They didn't mess around in those days with long trials or anything, and Calico Jack is literally hung that month in Port Royal, Jamaica.
Shit.
Supposedly, Anne's final words to him were, "Had you fought like a man, you need not have been hanged like a dog."
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I was about to ask you whether Jack was also cowering and not.
Possibly he was, yeah.
Jesus.
However, Anne and Mary both escape the death penalty because they plead with their bellies. AKA, they said, wait, we're both actually women and we just realised that we're both pregnant.
Yeah.
You can't execute us. God wouldn't like it.
I love when that comes up in like...
So they receive temporary stays of execution.
Oh,
very
temporary.
Cunningly. Anne and Mary are pregnant in prison. It's not good times. Mary dies from a fever in prison, possibly from childbirth. It was like during her pregnancy.
Shit.
Her burial is recorded at a local church in April of 1721. Anne gives birth in prison, and she appears to have actually been released afterwards.
Oh, wow.
Possibly because of her father's influence.
Ah.
So in 1724, in his book, Captain Charles Johnson states, "She was continued in prison to the time of her lying in, and afterwards reprieved from time to time. But what is become of her since, we cannot tell. Only this we know, that she was not executed." Rumours that she
Cuba.
settled somewhere in North America are about. There's other rumours that she went back to piracy. It's a bit of a mystery. She essentially disappears from the record.
Well, she could just go back to being a man and turn into a man and never disappear.
Master of disguise, she could have done anything. And so that was the story of Anne Bonny and Mary Read.
That's awesome.
Possibly much embellished and exaggerated, but in this case, no one really knows what's fact and what's fiction.
Yeah.
Watch Black Sails. It's really good. You can see lots of the characters from the story in there, although slightly kind of Disney-fied, but I think it's worth a watch. The one thing that puzzles me about these ladies' lives is these kind of things about how were they able to conceal their gender or their sex. So they say, scholars are uncertain how female pirates like Read and Bonny concealed their sex in a male-dominated environment. So people have said, it's, the wearing of breeches by female pirates it could have been about hiding your identity, or simply it's just because that was practical clothing that, helped them be seamen and pirates and was practical for running around fighting.
Yeah.
But the other thing that's because there's a lot of pregnancies in this, is contraception.
Yeah.
All of that messed up stuff you have to deal with as a woman.
Yeah.
You have to how did you go about really disguising yourself as a man, going to the toilet, getting changed or wash, all on a ship.
On a ship, yeah, they have a shit rope. That's
Men grow beards and stubble a lot of the time. There's a lot of things to think about if you're going to disguise. So it really makes me wonder about how many people actually kind of knew, or how common it was
how
to
progressive
disguise.
they actually were. Because I think, my theory is that people have been thinking we think, and what, generally progressive people, who just live by the golden rule, people have thought that for a long time. It's just they're stuck in that time period, wasting away. And the real interesting ones who are so frustrated and constrained break free, and those are always the ones that make the book, because they also know the system back then was bullshit. I think they all knew you can't disguise it that much. If you're on a ship, the reality is you're either you're using the shit rope, you're using a very public space, and
there's not much privacy,
and you're going to need to do something with, let's be honest, the blood.
Yeah.
As a woman, you've got that to contend with, and how are you hiding that? It just seems to me that the hiding was probably a temporary thing to gain their respect, and then the revealing would slowly start to happen. And what are you going to do? You're stuck on a ship.
Yeah.
Are you really going to get upset about it, especially if that captain's your husband?
I think in this case, in Anne and Mary's case, I think other people must have known, and maybe they did just somehow luck out with a lot of cool men that were respectful and chill with it, that didn't mess with them. I mean, it does just make you wonder how many women did disguise themselves in the past to get by.
Yeah, who just never were discovered. And if that's just two cases of famous pirates, how many women have had to temporarily, you say, disguise themselves just on the casual because they're bastards in a time period? They're illegitimate, quote unquote, all this bullshit that people are caring less and less about as we get older. As the species gets older. But I don't know, that's crazy. That is so cool.
Very, very cool ladies. What an insane lifestyle. Being pirates in general must have been pretty crazy. But to also become infamous as token lady pirates is just very extra. It's fascinating.
I'm glad women did stuff like that. That really went for it despite, you know, it takes a special person to break free of your constraints like that, whatever constraints are holding you back, and be like, you know what, I'm gonna be a fucking pirate woman. This is my life. Welcome to Pirate City. Queen Bee.
Oh yeah. Oh, I have something to interject.
Oh yes, good.
Of course, this would happen like the week after I do a treasure hunting themed episode.
Oh yeah.
But I need to talk about this. I'm gonna stick it in here. But so Cadbury's chocolate, you know who Cadbury's are. I mean, Dairy Milk, right? Have they launched this new product like this week or last week called Freddo Treasures.
Oh.
It's like a cute little treasure chest with like chocolates and a toy in it.
Okay.
And you open the lid.
Is it chocolate treasure chest?
It's like a little cardboard box, like with little like chocolates in it and a toy. You open the lid and there's a QR code that kids can scan to unlock a treasure hunting adventure designed by Cadbury's. Now, what the QR code takes you to are examples of real ancient treasures, like archaeological finds that have been found in Britain and their general locations, with like phrases like "go and get your metal detectors out, kids," or like "more Anglo-Saxon gold could be up for grabs." I'm just going to show you this really quick from an article so you can see exactly what I mean. But there it is. It's like Cadbury Treasure Island treasure hunting adventure. And it says things like this, like, get your hands on gold at, like, Fort. Gold ingots were unearthed 3 feet underground in rock quarry. The treasures have been valued to be worth 150 million euros. Probably worth a quick check. You know, or, like, mine for Saxon gold in, like, Essex. Over 1,500 years ago, an Anglo-Saxon king buried his gold in a field in Chelmsford. Now, 1,500 years later, the treasure's fair game. Okay, so this is kind of problematic. It's really irresponsible. Just such like a misguided venture. If you listen to the last episode on treasure hunters, although I make it very clear that I love treasure finds, and I'm thrilled that these finds captivate the public, and I really think they're an excellent entry point to teach people about archaeology and history. But archaeology isn't treasure hunting. There are lots of archaeologists who have been working very hard to try and change the public perception of what archaeology is. So don't go out there and ruin archaeology. In England, at least, it's illegal to metal detect or dig for stuff on scheduled monuments and protected archaeological sites. I don't care what the Freddo Treasures are telling you to do. Put the metal detector down. You know, if it is legal in your country to metal detect, then follow the laws, be responsible. We love amazing archaeological finds, but not irresponsible treasure hunting.
That's crazy.
So it was so hilariously surreal for me to see.
My mouth was dropping when I read that, like, because you've told me stories about how, like,
well, we've been out. We went on a walk at the time, and I knew that the area we were walking across was a scheduled monument, and we saw a guy with a metal detector like sneaking off in the distance.
Violet could have gone up to him with all her authority and told him off, but we did not. We continued. Yeah, but we should have.
But I wasn't brave enough. You know, it was just hilariously surreal to see on Twitter. Of course, I follow like all of the famous archaeologists, all of the boffins.
Did you tell them about this?
Oh, they brought it to my attention. Oh, okay. Believe me, there was like a storm on Twitter to see loads of archaeologists calling out freaking Freddo's chocolate on Twitter. Like, damn it, Freddo the Frog and your cheap, like, what used to be like 5p chocolate bars. Destroying archaeology.
Just, go trample on this with your metal detector and try and find stuff. Don't worry that, you know, that might be a sensitive land area with some fucking ancient shit that if you touch it, it could destroy it. Don't worry, kids. Don't worry, start getting fucking treasure mad, kids. And I love treasure and stuff, and I love treasure, but, you know, even I wouldn't go...
It's a massively misguided campaign.
Shitting on a fucking...
Very irresponsible.
Did I tell you about that time I went to Stonehenge? We snuck in. No, I'm just kidding. No, we were going to sneak in, but what I did is we drove up to the guards, the entrance, and because I didn't want to pay during the day. Fuck that. Nice as ever. I go up. I'm like, I'm going to be in England for 2 weeks. I want to go visit the stones. I read a book, Test the D'Urbervilles, and there's a bit where she lays on the stones, and I really want to do that. And I started telling this story, and I'm like, but I don't want to pay the money. He's like, come on in. So he let me get Morgan, and
that's so sweet.
They took us through this weird tunnel system that takes you to the stones. Like, I think it was like a weird tunnel thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, they're like, I would just hang out with this dude, and there was a guard shift, and he was telling us stories about people that try and break in, people who've had sex on the stones, and all the stuff that happens. And I just felt so inspired and felt really great while I was there, and it was a really lovely experience. But shout out to the people who work at Stonehenge. I'm not trying to get you in trouble. I'm sure they don't do that all the time. I gave them a sob story, and I was really emotional about it because it was, you know me.
Yeah.
Anything that I'm sort of
We can't take you to museums now because you get tearful.
I just start crying. I feel so, it's so powerful.
They're very emotional places, you know.
You're around the stuff that people have touched and been around from years and years ago. It feels like you're with them. Like they're still alive somehow. And that's all you can hope with, like, little trinkets. Like, it gets me. But yeah. Make sure you rate us on iTunes. We forgot to tell you for like 10 episodes. Rate, subscribe, review.
Subscribe.
Re-upload us on other platforms.
Review, rate.
We'll be on like YouTube, SoundCloud, all the platforms. We're going to try and have our own stuff.
We're going to be on Instagram. We're going to be on Twitter. We're going to have a website. We are going to be in other places.
All our stuff's going to be on the website.
You can email us.
But make sure to fucking rate and subscribe us. It will really help us. It makes us look good.
We're just doing this for the lols, man.
Yeah.
If you can help us out, that's great, you know.
But everything's on the website. But if you want to upload us on an alternate thing that we're not on, fucking do it. More power to you. You got some artwork already? Are you a true tinnywick already? Like,
oh god, what have we done?
Send us anything.
Are you a former pirate? Have you disguised yourself in a disguise? Let us know. Tell us your story.
Are you a drag king? Should I be checking you out on YouTube?
Are you sitting there right now with your earphones in, you've got an eye patch on, you're looking down itching your wooden leg with your hook?
Thinking about all the worser pirates that you failed marriages with, who were snitches.
Thinking about your years on the sea, pillaging Jamaica.
Did you have very large breasts that traumatized victims of yours that you wanted to kill still recall later on? Like, let us know.
Tell us your stories. Email them to
world-weary-podcast@gmail.com.
Send us your stuff. Maybe we'll talk about it one day.
Yeah, we're gonna maybe have a mini-series of your guys' stories. Maybe. We get enough of them.
We'll find some way to
incorporate
them, because it'll be so great to get a whole kind of collection.
Yeah.
And we love to know, your first mysteries, or the mysteries that you freaking love, the extraordinary stories you love.
What was baby's first mystery?
What was your baby's first extraordinary story?
Yeah. What made you think about things?
What's something that you read or heard about the other day that just totally sent you off into a world of pure imagination?
Which chocolate company fucked up this week? Let us know. Bye.
Bye.